resourceful, vigilant, and always up for a challenge. Hey guys, this is Epsylon. Today we're going to talk about Audrit. Ever since her childhood, Audrit loved the game Brick Gale, and is even one of the top players of the game. She believes she'll be able to live in the game if she gets her hands on a Cosmo piece. Audrit is a Battle of the Fortress class which focuses on using devastating ranged attacks from high in the sky. She carries a 12% shock resistance with a trade-off of -10 fire resistance. She comes equipped with 3 different weapons she can use in battle. The weapon in her hand, Powerball Launcher, is a ranged weapon that deals beam damage. It has a starting force of 12.8 and can end all the way at 28.4 force. Her next weapon, Beam Rifle, is another ranged weapon that deals beam damage with a starting force of 5.6 that can end all the way up to 11.1 force. Last but not least, Satellite Shooter is a sub-target weapon which deals beam damage with a starting force of 17.6 which ends all the way to 26.5 force. Just a quick note, all of her weapons are exclusive to her. Even though you can remove Powerball Launcher from her, the others cannot be removed, and Powerball Launcher itself cannot be equipped to another fortress bot. Usually, I'd explain weapon functionality at this point, but to paint a clearer picture, I'm going to explain the weapon functionality at the same time that I explain my experience with Audrit. And without further ado, I'll be honest. When I first got Audrit and I saw she was a fortress, the first thing that ran through my mind was Gorilla Bird's 80. Oh my god, I'm gonna have another headache on my hands. So when I flew around the lobby and fired her weapons, I wasn't impressed. Her weapons took forever to regen, she's still fat and clunky. Yeah, she had range, but so did Gorilla Bird, and her ammo seemed very low, so I was already saying, wow, she's gonna run dry in the middle of battle. When a fortress is finally going to start being useful, like an Epsylon or something. And when I took her into battle, she got a little better, but it wasn't much. Her beam rifle fires like any other beam rifle you've seen in the game. It has decent range to it, actually pretty good range. Her Powerball Launcher is basically a Stardust Cannon or a Little Star Cannon, but fires in 2 shots instead of 1. The shots can be cancelable, so you can fire 1 at a time, but the recharge on it was so painful. And then the Satellite Shooter, an enemy, even if they were in front of me, I couldn't really lock onto them with it unless they were breathing down my neck. And when it did hit them, it ticked a few bits of damage before I could, before it would do anything else. Keep in mind, even when Satellite Shooter hit the enemy, it would do multiple hits per shot, but it had pretty low ammo and the regen was just as painful as Powerball Shooter as well. I know, you're probably wondering why get Audrit. The reason to get Audrit is because she's amazing. When I was playing with her the first few times, I wasn't paying attention to what she was capable of, and I just kept Gorilla Bird Sadie's flaws stuck in my head. But little did I know, she actually covered those flaws and went past what I expected. Her beam rifle, though simple, is basically her bread and butter because it allows her to fight with anybody on the ground or anybody in the air with ease and from a safe distance. And her Powerball Launcher makes for great air-to-ground combat with things like Panthers or things that you can simply outrange, due to the fact that it deals decent damage and other enemies that manage to be caught in the blast radius of the Powerball Launcher will get hurt too. Finally, her coup de grace, her signature, Satellite Shooter. It has the worst horizontal range I've ever seen in the game, period. Even melee reaches farther than that. But its vertical range is literally limitless. You can fly all the way to the top of a stage and just nuke a power spot if it's directly below you, and it will reach it and deal so much damage. And its firing speed is so fast that if an assault or an aerial is chasing you or flying after you, you can actually hit them with it, deal the damage, and it has a really nasty stun, which allows you to get out of trouble when you need to. And also, if an object, target, or enemy is caught between multiple satellite shots, it takes damage from all the satellite shots collectively, not just one at a time. So you can really rack up the damage pretty fast. And one of the things that I like to do is if I see somebody fighting somebody and they're having trouble, I'll launch a satellite shot at them and then fire all my weapons at the same time just to increase the damage that comes out. And let's not forget her shift action, Afterburner. If you use it on the ground, it performs a VTOL action which puts you in the air and then gives you a flight speed buff for a decent amount of time. And if you use it in the air, it gives you an Excel roll action with the increased flight speed as well. I use this from time to time after using the Satellite Shooter as a counter to quickly get out of a situation if I know I'm in a tight spot. This usually helps out, but I'll be honest about the shift action. It is a little weak. I don't really notice the flight speed. Maybe it's the Fortress flight speed to begin with that makes it a little slow. But I've noticed boost flight gets me further out of the situation than her Afterburner. With an arsenal like this, you can take on literally any bot you please, but you have to keep in mind, since she's a fortress, she is still a little squishy. You can't be 100% reckless, and if you see yourself taking damage, maybe you need to back off a little bit. She has enough range to be able to fight whatever you're looking to fight anyway. But literally, she is really an amazing bot. I can't stress that enough. And about using Satellite Shot as a counter, this is a little tricky to get down at first, but with enough practice and timing, it really saves your hide. But keep in mind, if an enemy's hitting you over and over, don't try to just spam Satellite Shot. That will just negate your Satellite Shot and you'll be forced to the cooldown anyway. You have to kind of know when they're coming and anticipate it, so that way you can fire it in time, get them stunned, and get out of there, or turn the tables on them and fight them. And even though she has low ammo, because you'll be switching between weapons here and there, you will get a chance to regen ammo and be able to get back into the fight from time to time. You won't be running dry just as quick as Gorilla Bird does. But one word to the wise that I have to mention, using beam rifle on things like Panzers tend to miss quite a bit, and trying to use the Powerball launcher on aerials or fortresses, well, not fortresses, but mostly aerials, you'll notice that from time to time your shot will miss, or something will eat your shot, or the charge time causes you to miss being able to hit them. And so you have to really figure out where you're going to use your shots and time them wisely, because with those long cooldowns, you really can't afford missing a shot. That really hurts you more than it helps you. When I first got my hands on Audrit, all I kept doing was comparing her to Gorilla Bird. But the more I played with her, the less I started to see the similarities. This is what a fortress is. This is how I expected fortresses to begin with. And this is the fortress that you should fear when you see it on the battlefield. There are a few classes that I recommend Audrit fighting against. And there are a few that I highly recommend you do not fight against unless you either don't have a choice or you're definitely sure you could take this opponent down. The classes I recommend fighting against when using Audrit are Panzers and Jammers. Panzers are pretty straightforward, they can't reach you, you deal nothing but beam damage, and moreover, you deal a lot of it. If you see these, it's pretty much a free kill. Don't let them touch you because you will take a lot of damage. This is how Panzers work. And Jammers, they tend to stay around a lot of people, but you kind of want that because of the fact that you deal so much damage, you'll be hitting all of them at once rather than just focusing on the Jammer individually. Her rival classes would be Other Fortresses and Busters. Fortresses is pretty straightforward. Whoever has the upper hand in the fight. But Busters, they have just as much range as you, and even though they may not be air-based, they have anti-air attacks most of the time. So keep this in mind when fighting other Busters and other Fortresses. Now this leaves the last two classes, the classes that I highly recommend not fighting against, unless you either don't have a choice, or you are definitely sure you could take them down. These classes are Aerials and Assaults. This means Primroses, Mias, Swordwings, Ixions, Zero Sabers, Pacifars, and so forth. The reason why I say it's not recommended to fight against these guys is very simple. They are always in your face. They are pretty much relentless, and even though you can counter against them with the satellite shooter, you have to make the first move to do so. They can't initiate the first move. If they do, and they're in your face, this pretty much marks death for you unless somebody's able to intervene or you manage to find a way to get away from them. But these classes, like I said, make sure you're nearby your teammates, or you are definitely sure you can take them down before engaging in this fight. Cards I recommend using on Audrit would be Fall Charge, Boost Flight, Combat Boost, increase your boost gauge when you take damage, and Damage Up, increase damage when you hit an enemy from behind. Like I said in Sadie's video, I'm not a big fan of fortress bots, but Audrit changed my views on fortresses completely, and now I'm looking towards the next fortress that I get. This is a must-get bot, even if you don't like fortresses. She deals so much damage, and she has more than one way of being able to damage an enemy. This bot works great right out of the box, or out of the Garrifon, so to speak. But I cannot stress enough that she is a game changer. This is a must-have.